In 59 BC, Florence was founded by Julius Caesar. The urban plan of Florence was influenced by the Roman military camps. From looking at maps of Florence, it clearly doesn't look like a military camp because the plan of Florence has changed over time. However, there are still some features of the ancient city that we will focus on today. Roman military camps typically had walls with gates marking 4 entrances that corresponds to the Cardo and Decumanus. The Cardo is a main street that goes north to south, and the Decumanus is a main street that goes east to west. Attached to this wall, there are large gates marking the entrances of the camp. These large gates would work as monitoring systems for those who come and go. In addition to those things, the Roman military camps were designed along a grid that the structures inside the wall conform to. These Roman military camp features are some important elements that Florence contains. At this time, the defense wall was used to keep enemies out of city walls. That explains why they have many watchtowers designed into these gates. In the 12th century, the city started to expand and houses started being built on the outside of the walls. In 1186, a new wall was built to expand the growing city. This wall was double the size of the original wall, and it was the first wall that interacted with the adjacent river. Less than 100 years later, in 1282, the city was growing exponentially and it forced officials to expand the walls again. Notice how compact the city within the first wall was located, and as the walls expanded, so did the density of the city. The architect, Arnolfo di Cambio, was the man who was called to design this wall. At the time, Cambio was one of the most famous architects in Florence. He had a part in many projects such as Palazzo Vecchio, the Duomo, and Basilica di Santa Croce. Once the wall was finished, it was one of the most glorified walls in Europe. Many people admired it for the amount of space it had inside. Due to the issues they had before, they wanted to make sure there was more than enough space for the city to grow before they had to tear down and rebuild another city wall. This defensive wall had 16 entrances and exits. There were some larger gates into the city called portes, and the smaller gates were referred to as posterns. Each of the gates opened at dawn and closed at sunset. This information was vital to guests and to residents because this gate was used to protect, but also used as a way to collect taxes from people entering the city. In the 19th century, the gates surrounding Florence were mostly taken down. There are still some locations that have preserved this part of Florence's history. There are some gates that remain standing today, such as Porte San Fridiano. These gates stand as a reminder that this city once was enclosed, but now it breaks free from those restraints. Porte San Fridiano is located on the west side of the city facing Pisa. Florence relied on these gates as checkpoints to collect money from those coming to participate in the popular markets. Markets were used as like today's farmers' markets, but back then, these markets played a vital role in trading between cities. This gate was named after the nearby church, San Fridiano. Porte San Fridiano was built in 1333. The gates that remain show how each of these gates are different in style. Something that makes this gate stand out from the others is that it has its original doors still attached to it from the 1300s when it was constructed. The gate doors are made out of wood and have iron studs. The doors even have iron rings where people could tie up the horses for overnight stays. Above the arch, the Florentine is still visible to this day and faces the city. This site is visited by many tourists today, and some visitors have even said that they allow people to climb up this gate, giving them an amazing view of Florence. Another gate that remains visible today is Porte Santa Croce. This gate is located on the east side of Santa Croce. This gate was built in the late 13th century and was refurbished in 1817. In the 19th century, when the walls were torn down, this porte remains. It is currently located in the middle of Piazza Beccaria, in the middle of its traffic circles. This allows this historic gate entrance to be shown off, and in many of the pictures taken of this gate, there are people surrounding the land admiring the gate's beauty and importance. Today it is known as the Oasis of Salvation because of the people crossing the busy Italian streets to get to where this gate is located. The scale of both of these gates stand tall for many to see. They are themselves a reflection of where Florence came from and where they are now. They are markers of where the city used to be and allow people to look out and see the growth that has come. Florence today is a place where people from all over the world come to learn and be engulfed in their historic community. I would not say when thinking about Florence, I think of their old defensive wall system. But knowing this information gives an appreciation to see how this place was shaped to the beautiful city we know and love.